Hey, welcome back everybody. What's going on? This is B-Hub here. Today I want to just take a couple of minutes and I want to talk about the broad idea of building and gearing and using the masteries on characters. Look, here's the bottom line. There is more than one way to build most characters. So I want to kind of go through what do you need to look at to figure out how should you build your character. Here's the first piece of advice that I want to give you. Look at multiple people's builds if you can find them, right? So for instance, don't just look at my build. Go and look at other YouTubers and look at other articles that you can find, whatever you can find on a character, and look at how people have built that character. Getting multiple sources is always a good thing to do when you're trying to figure out what's the best decision. Now, here's how we're going to narrow that decision down. There's a couple of things that I think that you need to know when it comes to how do I build my character specifically. So what do you need to be looking for? What do you need to know? Here's the first thing that you need to know. You need to know your team specifically. Raid is a game where you play with multiple heroes, and the best way to play with multiple heroes is to have multiple heroes that synergize with one another. You want them to help one another in the fight. So you need to know how your team works. You need to know what every one of them does. You need to understand it well, and you need to know how do the rest of your heroes complement each other. So let me give you an example, because for instance, the other night, I released an Aethel video showing how I geared my Aethel. And there's more than one way to gear an Aethel. And the reason that is because different people's teams are different. So for instance, you can go for the accuracy route, you can go for a defense, like for the accuracy, the support mastery, or you can go for a defense mastery. Both of those are very solid and viable builds. It just depends on what you need. So let me talk about the synergy that is my clan boss team first. The way that my team works is, you've heard me say this before, as you watch, I need Martyr to go first, I need Clan Boss to go second, and then follow it up with the rest of my team. You've probably seen this before from me, but it just helps to illustrate this is how my team works. Now, when it comes to how do I build Aethel, or how do I build any one of my other characters, one thing that I want to avoid are masteries for me that increase my other characters, increases their turn meter. Now here's why I'm trying to avoid increasing the turn meter. Because if any one of them, by increasing their turn meter, start to outspeed or go before Martyr, they're going to start losing rounds. Because they're going to go before Martyr, and then when Martyr casts the counterattack, they're not going to get both of the AoE rounds in with both of those buffs on them. So they're going to start missing rounds just because they increase their turn meter just a little bit. Now that's something that's specific to my personal team because I run a counterattack team. So you might need a character that has masteries that increase the turn meter of your people. So for instance, like Blind Seer had it, Martyr used to have it on my team. They used to have this ability whenever a buff expires, there was a 30% chance of increasing their turn meter. And that was good until I started to synergize my team together, and I needed their turn meters to stay the same so that I know they're always going to get all of the buffs they need at the exact right time that they need it. That's very specific to my team. So there are some things in certain mastery trees that I don't use on my team that you might need to use in yours because your setup isn't the same as mine. Look, when you're gearing a character, it isn't as easy as let me plug and play what another person uses and plug that into my character. You have to know your team. How are your synergies working together, and what can you do to make your team better? Here's the other thing that you need to know. You need to know the individual character specifically and what you need on that character. So for instance, if many of you watched the Aethel video, you know that my Aethel is geared to the support tree, and it was for the accuracy. Aethel has the lowest accuracy of any of the people on my team. She's rocking a 182 accuracy, which is, it's fine, it works, but before I had all of those bonuses, before I had the Great Hall bonus all the way up, I needed a little bit more. So I had to run that support tree from Aethel so I could make sure that her weekend was landing. You might need that. You might need the extra boost in accuracy that comes from that tree to make sure that your debuffs are landing on Nightmare Clan Boss or whatever else it is that you're trying to fight. But here's the other thing. You might not need that. It's a perfectly viable build to switch Aethel to a defensive tree and run some things that are in that tree. It can become very helpful. It's still a great way to build Aethel. There's not just one way to build a character. You need to know how to synergize your team, and you need to know what your individual people need on them at the specific time. And if you watch my Clan Boss video on how I dealt a lot of damage on the Nightmare Clan Boss, you'll know that, for instance, on Aethel, I don't use her A3 a lot because I need it to get me out of certain situations. Now, because I don't use her A3 all the time, it means I get the additional accuracy bonus that most people would neglect, or they would miss out on it because they would use her A3 every time that it comes up. I also have a counterattack team, which means a lot of the time it's not profitable for me to have Aethel grant herself an extra turn because she just loses a turn of the counterattack, which isn't helpful for me. So because of the way that my specific team runs, I'm able to get the most out of that tree, and I needed it when I was first building my Aethel because I didn't have the accuracy that I needed to land stuff on Clan Boss. So you got to know who you are, and you got to know what your team is and what your individual characters need. The other thing is about the gear. Look, I doubt that me nor any other YouTuber out there has all of the gear that we want. I don't. Especially my Aethel is not built the way that I wish she was built. You'll hear me say it in the video, but she has a 50% gloves and 50% on her the chest for defense, and I wish that one of those was HP because stacking defense doesn't really work all of that well. I think stacking one and stacking both of them is what will help give you the best survivability. But I just don't have access to the things that I need all the time, and you probably won't either. So you're going to have to figure out how do you build your characters. So that's why I said look at different sources. See what different people use and how they do it. Also keep in mind that not every build is going to work for you depending on where you're at in the game. For instance, if you saw my build on Aethel, again, just to use this as an example, to run her effectively, you need Giant Slayer on her. You need that. She will not deal the kind of damage that she does for me, for you, if you're trying to run her before you have Giant Slayer. It just won't work. And also her healing just won't work. You're going to need to get to that higher level progression. Now here's the good news about this. It means that your gear doesn't have to be perfect. It means that your masteries might be a little bit different than some other people, but it still means that whatever build you do, as long as you're doing it thoughtfully and logically, you'll be able to run high game content. You'll be able to run this in-game stuff. You can take on Nightmare Clan Boss without having to be absolutely picture perfect in everything that you do. You can have gear that's not so great and still get by. You can run masteries that aren't, exactly like your favorite YouTuber because you might not have the same team as they do. You need to do what's best for your team, and that might take some time to figure out, but I have faith in you guys. I know that you can do it. So I think that's where I want to land this video today. I hope this was helpful to you, and you learned today that there's more than one way to play this game. Go out there and check out what other people have to say and hear other opinions and see other people's builds and see what works best for you. At the end of the day, truth is, every single one of us has the potential to make mistakes. The good news is, though, is that I don't have to have it right all the time, and neither do you. The best thing that we can do to move forward is to continue to help one another progress in the game, and that can only be done through a community. That's why I'm so thankful for all the support that I have and all the support that you've helped provide to me. There's only one way that we get better at that, and that is together. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and until next time, peace out.